It is the 2017 film adaptation of the 1986 novel by Stephen King, also technically a second adaptation after the 1990s miniseries, and is about a group of friends who come together to form what we call the Losers Club, in which they fight off a demonic entity that takes the form of anything they're afraid of, more specifically known as a clown called Pennywise. What do I say about this film? Okay, let me get this out of the way. The 1990s miniseries came out at a time where television was kind of It was pretty big for its time, but horror was very it didn't have a lot of popularity. There wasn't a lot of viewership for it. So the series comes out. It's pretty damn good. It gets mixed reviews. I saw it when I was 9, so bear in mind that's when I'm a tiny kid. So of course to me it's scary. And of course to me it's the first one I saw. So it's technically the best in my opinion. Again, that's just me being biased. If I wasn't biased, I will say this. This film is more faithful to the novel. The acting is superb. The cinematography is freaking amazing. The score is terrifying. There's some decent scares. Everything about this movie is great. Unfortunately, with a good cast, with a good script, with a great score, and with an overall amazing chemistry between all the actors, it's unfortunately not enough to save this film. This film is very long and very boring. The reason for that, I think, is just the fact that there's a tone change. This one is supposed to be a little more graphic and gory, which is great. You know, it's something that the old series couldn't do. It does want to follow the novel a little bit more, so we get a little more out of it that doesn't really work. So as a big Stephen King fan, I'll even admit a lot of his work is just not meant for the big screen. It's not meant for TV series. It's just his work is meant to be his work. But that being said, even with everything we have, this is really not a good movie. It did get a lot of positive reviews. A lot of people loved this movie. But I have met a lot of people that are on the fence about it like I am. Again, you got all these things about it that are great, including the actors. They're believable. They remind you of the kids from Stranger Things. You see these kids and you see kids that are naturally terrified of this entity, and they come together not just because they're best friends, but because they want to kick this thing's ass. They're strong. They're ready to get together and basically take on the thing they fear the most. And I think that is one thing I do like about this movie is just you get that really good feeling. I mean, you got that with the old one, but this one, you get that a lot. And this is their own movie. It isn't like the miniseries where you get the adults and the kids for the whole thing. I mean, you got the kids first half, and then you got the adults in the second half. This one, it's just all about the kids. Of course, there's a sequel, but that is not what we're discussing. I'd like to start off with the things I love about this film, as I always do. Again, as I've mentioned, the score is great. The music makes the atmosphere very tastefully done. The acting, I think, is superb, even with the adults, which is a little corny at times. It's very good. Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise this time around, not Tim Curry from the one I remember as a kid. He did a good job. It's menacing. It's scary. You know, it's not to say that it's disappointing. It's just not the Pennywise I'm used to. So I try hard not to be biased against that. But again, he did a good job. I do like the setting. You know, everything in this film does feel like it's time frame, which is something that bothers me, but we'll get to that a little bit. I do like the setting. I like the way it looks. It feels pretty believable that this takes place in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, you've got a lot of stuff in there that's pretty much memorabilia, stuff that I remember seeing when I was a kid in the 90s. So, you know, I like that too. I love a lot of the hints too that it pays tribute to the novel. That I think is great. And I do like the gory, bloody aspect. You know, that's something that the original one, like I said, was missing. And so that we have that now, I think it makes it pretty badass all around. I mean, it does work out. So that's something I truly do enjoy about it. Another thing I enjoy too is a lot of the characterization. We get to know these characters a little more than we did in the original series. It feels pretty on par with the book. Book obviously has a little more detail. Now let's get to the things I don't like about it. Again, as I said, this is a long and boring movie. Even with everything we have, it doesn't save it. This movie is so hard to sit through. My biggest gripe is what I mentioned earlier that I sort of liked, the setting. I don't like that they changed it to the 80s. If you read the book, you know it takes place in the 60s or late 50s, 60s, which is the same with the film. So not seeing that and seeing that it's in the 80s all the way just so it can take place in modern day when they're adults and they fight back this terrible clown. It's just, it didn't do it for me. But I did like it because it was believable. You know, you see the 80s and you think, yep, this is the 80s. Another thing I didn't like was the villainous character of Henry Bowers. He is a complete psychopath. He pretty much was in the book too, but it's almost annoying in this film. I don't like the actor they hired to play him. I don't like how he's all around a fucking brat. That's the part that's most annoying. I mean, there's a scene in particular where they get one of the kids and he tries to carve his name into the kid's stomach with a knife. And you're like, dude, this kid's a fucking psychopath. How is he just walking around freely like this? That is the type of thing that made no sense to me. I didn't like his fucking hairdo, which is a focal point in the film. He's got a mullet. It seems a little weird for its time frame. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It didn't do it for me. And like I said, he just seemed like a spoiled brat. He was really, really fucking annoying. It was hard to take him seriously, and it was hard to be terrified of him. He was just bratty. He was a not good choice for that character, and I kind of feel like they don't do justice for him. You know, the original film or miniseries, the actor is pretty much almost the same. It's very psychotic. He's very driven towards beating the shit out of these kids, but he's not as annoying. You can take him a little bit in fragments. You know, he seems a little bit more witty and charming, and he seems more like all around a smart ass, whereas in this one, the Henry Bowers character is just absolutely fucking annoying. That part I most definitely didn't like. Another thing I truly didn't like was the ending. It was kind of dumb. I mean, the whole fight scene with the entity that is Pennywise changing into everything they've seen, everything they're afraid of. I thought it was really stupid. It was a little over the top. It was a little too CGI, in my opinion. That's one thing I did mention earlier, is that this is a very expensive film. And I think they went into that knowing that this was going to be a pretty big deal. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on this movie by any means. Look how much money it made. $701.8 million worldwide. That is a lot of fucking money. It broke records. So to say that it's a terrible movie is kind of an overstatement. I mean, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was really that good. I thought it could have been better. I definitely enjoyed the older one more, but that's because, again, I was a kid and it scared me. This one just didn't scare me. There wasn't a lot of suspense. I think there's like maybe one scene that really got me, and it's without being too into spoilers. There's a scene where one of the kids sees a picture that has a really weird like lady with fucked up teeth and a fucking flute in her hand, puts the picture up after it falls, noticing that the woman in the picture is gone, and surprised she's right behind him, which by the way was good because it's not a jump scare. The creature drops the flute that it holds in the picture, and that's when he realizes, holy shit, there's something behind me. He sees it. And yeah, that part was a little suspenseful. I ain't gonna lie, that did scare the shit out of me. Otherwise, the rest of it was just, I think it would play more off as it looks good. You know, it sounds good. Like I said, there's a great script. I mean, it's pretty to the point. It's not like they fucked that up. And I don't think that anyone went into this to make a boring movie, but that's just how this came out. And I'm trying so hard not to be biased, even as I watched it. I was excited for this movie. I love Stephen King, and it is one of the greatest novels of all time. It's one of his best works. So, you know, I was excited, especially when I found out that they were going to make it more faithful to the book. So I thought, you know what, I'll go check it out. But again, I just thought it was really boring. You can have all the greatest stuff in the world. You can even have some of the greatest child actors in the world, some of the best special effects, but that still doesn't do it justice. It has to be interesting, and a good majority of the time, it is not. This movie just feels really boring. It just kind of feels forced in a sense. I mean, gotta give him a B for at least trying, but all around, guys, I'm going to give it 2017 a 3-star. The reason for the 3-star rating is just that, you know, it looks good and it's definitely an A-quality film, but it's not interesting. I mean, you can make any movie with any amount of actors and any good storyline. It has to captivate, but it's just, you know, it doesn't grab you. That's the way I saw it. I think this movie would be good for people that are looking for a good scare, maybe just to live off that nostalgia of Pennywise the Clown, which all around has become a modern day horror character similar to like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. You see it everywhere you go. There's Pennywise masks, there's Pennywise bobbleheads, yada yada yada. He's become part of the slasher horror villain realm, if you will. You know, you couldn't go anywhere without someone who hasn't heard of Pennywise the Clown. I mean, probably didn't see the movie, you still know who it is. So He's pretty much a monumental character, and again, Bill Skarsgård did a great job. I thought he was perfect. He was menacing. He was freaky. He was creepy. Definitely frightening at times, but it wasn't scary to me, and I wouldn't say it was a praise. It's not something I praise. His performance was good enough. It passed for me. I'm just so used to Tim Curry because I loved the humor. I loved all the things that were shitty about the old miniseries that didn't make the cut for the new one. All the things that were shitty in the miniseries are the things I loved. And of course, that didn't make it in this. This one's supposed to be more grounded into realism. And, obviously they're different films, and maybe I do sound biased. I'm trying so hard not to be, but unfortunately, this just didn't do it for me. It's arguable that this is one of the greatest Stephen King adaptations of all time. I'm going to say it's not. I'll give it 3 stars. It's really not that good of a movie. It has every familiar symptom of a good movie. It has everything that can make it a good movie, but it's just not. It's 3 stars at best. I really did not enjoy it that much. Highly disappointed. I mean, it's good to kill time, really. If you want to see this movie, I say go right ahead. It's not like it's that hard to sit through. I just didn't find it interesting. Really, the only thing that grabbed me was how good it looked, but it wasn't good at all. Otherwise, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate the time you take to listen to this. Oh, you know what? Before I go, I should mention one thing that really does piss me off. I don't like what they did to the Beverly character. If you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen the old one, you know what I'm talking about. They made her fugly as shit. I know she's supposed to be a kid, so it's not like something you expect, but they fucked up her character, in my opinion. They kind of, I don't know, the changes from the book to this one, it didn't sit well with me. That's just from the, being a loyal Stephen King fan aspect, which I think you should leave at home. If you want to watch this movie and look forward to it as just a film, I advise that over going into it the way I did, thinking of it as, it's a remake of the 1990s series. And it's another adaptation of Stephen King's novel. If you go into it as a movie that stands on its own, it's good, but don't go in with that expectation, because that's what drove me apart from it. And then the biggest thing that kind of put a wedge between me and the film was just the fact that I didn't find it interesting at all. I couldn't get into it. It was hard. Again, this is just, you can't go into this watching it the way you did as a kid and then expect it to scare you, because it's not going to. I mean, the humor is all right. Like I said, the chemistry between the kids is pretty believable, but there's only so much of that they can carry for it to really hold your attention before you start to question if it's worth your time or not, or if it's even a good movie. Again, guys, thanks for listening. I am Tony Trujillo, your host. This is Grave Shift. I will see you next Friday at 10 p.m. Stay scared.